Paris is the capital city of France, situated on the River Seine, in northern France. An important settlement for more than 2 millennia, its location at a crossroads between land and river trade routes in lands of abundant agriculture had made it one of the principal cities of France by the 10th century, endowed with royal palaces, wealthy abbeys and a cathedral. Modern Paris is the result of a vast mid-19th century urban remodeling. For centuries it had been a labyrinth of narrow streets and half-timber houses, but beginning in 1852, the Baron Haussmann's vast urbanization leveled entire quarters to make way for wide avenues lined with neo-classical stone buildings of bourgeois standing. Most of this new Paris is the Paris we see today. Musée du Louvre is one of the most important and most visited museums in the world. The Louvre Museum is obviously a very busy Paris attraction. French Musée du Louvre, official name Great Louvre or French Grand Louvre, National Museum and Art Gallery of France, housed in part of a large palace in Paris that was built on the right bank site of the 12th century fortress of Philip Augustus. It is the world's most visited art museum, with a collection that spans work from ancient civilizations to the mid-19th century. In 1546, Francis I, who was a great art collector, had this old castle razed and began to build on its site another royal residence, a Louvre, which was added to by almost every subsequent French monarch. The Louvre ceased to be a royal residence when Louis XIV moved his court to Versailles in 1682. Champs-Élysées, 8th arrondissement, right bank, is a 17th century garden promenade turned avenue connecting the Arc de Triomphe and Concorde. It is one of the many tourist attractions and a major shopping street of Paris. This avenue has been called La Plus Belle Avenue du Monde, the most beautiful avenue in the world. The Arc de Triomphe de l'Étoile is one of the most famous monuments in Paris, standing at the western end of the Champs-Élysées at the center of Place Charles de Gaulle. Historically known as the Place de l'Étoile, is a large road junction in Paris, the meeting point of 12 straight avenues including the Champs-Élysées. The Arc de Triomphe honors those who fought and died for France in the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. The Eiffel Tower was built by Gustave Eiffel for the 1889 Exposition Universelle, which was to celebrate the 100th year anniversary of the French Revolution. Its construction in 2 years, 2 months and 5 days was a veritable technical and architectural achievement. Utopia achieved, a symbol of technological prowess. At the end of the 19th century it was a demonstration of French engineering personified by Gustave Eiffel, and a defining moment of the industrial era. It was met immediately with tremendous success. Grand Palais is an impressive stone building crowned with a stunning metal and glass roof. It is situated alongside the Champs-Élysées and was built for the 1900 World Fair. The Petit Palais, like its grand neighbor opposite, the Petit Palais was built for the 1900 World's Fair here in Paris. The tomb of Napoleon sits within a circular crypt in the Église du Dôme at Les Invalides. To accommodate the tomb, the church's high altar had to be redesigned in 1842. The 107-meter-high gold-gilded Baroque dome that sits on top of the Hôtel des Invalides Royal Chapel is easily recognizable on the Parisian skyline and acts as a beacon to one of Paris' major attractions, Napoleon's tomb. Place de la Concorde, 8th arrondissement, right bank, is at the foot of the Champs-Élysées, built as the Place Louis XV, site of the infamous guillotine. The Egyptian obelisk is Paris's oldest monument. On the two sides of the Rue Royale stand two identical stone buildings. The eastern houses the French Naval Ministry, the western the luxurious Hôtel de Crillon. Nearby Place Vendôme is famous for its fashionable and deluxe hotels, Hotel Ritz and Hôtel de Vendôme, and its jewelers. Many famous fashion designers have had their salons in the square. Column Vendôme. In 1810, the column that we see today was placed in the center of the Place Vendôme, 44 meters high. It was dedicated to the soldiers of the Battle of Austerlitz, inspired by Trajan's column in Rome. Cast in the bronze from 1,200 cannons seized from the Russian and Austrian armies, it is decorated in classical style with bas-reliefs representing trophies. The Place Vendôme was built in 1686 by order of the French King Louis XIV. Along the decades, the most prestigious French haute couture brands and the finest jewelry houses started owning, whether a store or an atelier, under continuous intensive surveillance at Place Vendôme. Place Vendôme has always been praised by many. One specific place has won many hearts, the five-star Hotel Ritz. Over the years, it has received the most distinguished customers, such as Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Charlie Chaplin and Coco Chanel. Some of the suites even got named after the most prestigious guests. Lady Diana had her last dinner at the Ritz. On August 30th of 1997, Diana, Princess of Wales, and her lover, Dodi Al-Fayed, were dining in the Imperial Suite at the Hotel Ritz. Later that night, they left the hotel in a car and suffered a tragic car crash that took their life away. The accident happened on the Pont de l'Alma in Paris. With its red windmill is another of Paris's iconic landmarks and still a popular outing for today's visitors. Welcoming visitors to Paris since 1889, the Moulin Rouge, think Cancan and Toulouse-Lautrec, continues to deliver its reviews complete with glitz, glamour and girls. Basilica of the Sacré-Coeur. From the dawn of time, Montmartre has been a place of worship, from the Druids of ancient Gaul, through the Romans with their temples dedicated to Mars and Mercury, to the Church of St. Peter, the oldest in Paris, rebuilt in the 12th century next to the Royal Abbey of Montmartre by Louis VI and his wife Adélaïde de Savoy. Finally, the Basilica of the Sacré-Coeur, erected at the end of the 19th century. Today, this shrine of prayer remains faithful to its tradition. God is well and truly present. Montmartre, 18th arrondissement, right bank, is a historic area on the Butte, home to the Basilica of the Sacré-Coeur. Montmartre has always had a history with artists and has many studios and cafes of many great artists in that area. Salvador Domingo Felipe Jacinto Dalí y Domenech, first Marquis of Dalí de Poblet, was a Spanish surrealist artist renowned for his technical skill, precise draftsmanship and the striking and bizarre images in his work. Born in Figueres, Catalonia, Dalí received his formal education in fine arts at Madrid. Musée d'Orsay, located on the left bank of the River Seine, the Musée d'Orsay is a former railway station converted into a delightful museum in 1986 to house a fabulously diverse art collection. Conciergerie. Once a royal palace and later a prison, the Conciergerie played a dark role in the French Revolution. It was where people were held prior to being taken to the guillotine. The Cathedral of Notre-Dame de Paris, a masterpiece of Gothic architecture, is the most visited monument in France. It was built in the Middle Ages, at the far end of the Circumflex Allée de la Cité. Work started in the 13th century and finished in the 15th century. Badly damaged during the French Revolution, the cathedral was restored in the 19th century by the architect Viollet-le-Duc. Its many visitors come to admire its stained glass and rose windows, the towers, the steeple and the gargoyles. They can also discover the Notre-Dame treasury and have a go at climbing the towers to enjoy a panoramic view of Paris.
Cessez de dire du mal des uns des autres, dire du mal de son frère.
In 2013, Notre-Dame is celebrated its 850th anniversary. For this occasion, many events were organized and the cathedral renewed its bells with the arrival of 8 new bells as well as a new great bell. Road distances from Paris and France are calculated from point zero on the cathedral forecourt.
Ya, de abusadora, si no, no, trabajando.